Well, welcome to Martalks. I'm Daryl Rosenstein, your host. Martalks is where we discuss contemporary issues in the e-commerce and marketing technology landscape. And today we're joined by the founder of One Creation, Zohar Hod. Zohar is a serial entrepreneur from the financial technology landscape and had some very substantial exits before coming to join us here in martech land. And he has developed a solution that enables marketers to rapidly acquire first-party data in a trusted environment. And we're going to discuss what it means to be trusted today with Zohar. Zohar, welcome.
Thank you very much, Daryl. Very nice of you to have me.
Well, we'll see about that. But to start off, your tagline for One Creation is building your relationships with your customers through trust. And what exactly does One Creation do in order to facilitate that?
So One Creation in short form is basically a dynamic preference engine. Basically, it's a product that sits in between your customer engagement channel. So it could be anywhere, the point of sale, email, all of the different channels where you meet your customer, and your customer data platform in order to enable basically cookieless personalization. But cookieless personalization that is based on trust and transparency, and even an exchange of value, which we believe are the main factors in order to establish trust and to progressively build a personal experience for your customer over time.
Well, I am in sales, and kind of the fatal thing to say to any customer is usually trust me. But if you're actually giving me something in exchange for trusting you, I'm a little more apt to listen. So that does make sense to me, to my reptile brain. But what was actually the idea behind you creating this?
Well, let me first elaborate a little bit about what you said about trust. You're right. If you put up "trust me," it's not a really good marketing strategy, and I won't. Trust is built. It's not built in one transaction. It's built in interactions throughout your customer experience that are transparent and are based on very transparent use of what we're doing with your particular preference here, and maybe rewarding you for being a little bit more transparent and more, having an equal type of relationship between the customer and the brand, rather than today's, feeling that's very creepy, that things are, tracking us in the back without us knowing. That creates an untrusting relationship between the brand and the customer. We're pulling towards a different type of business model, which will basically create a lot more ability to personalize your customer's experience than you can with just tracking them without or tricking them, let's say, into giving you consent to do something with their data. Now, where did the idea come from? As you said in your introduction, I'm really a financial technologies guy, more of a data type of person throughout my career. But this started with a personal story. My son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. We went to the hospital, and I had to sign a few documents, as most parents that go to the hospital. I didn't really know, and you always say, I don't know what I'm signing, and you're filling in a couple of information. But what happens is that soon enough, we started getting bombarded by medical device companies' advertisements, and it was really a barrage of that advertisements in multiple different channels. And that really upset me because it was my son's condition, and I didn't really mean for that to leak anywhere out. It's not illegal what they did, but it's still creepy. And I wanted to change that, and therefore, started One Creation in order to change that for the brands.
Well, I'm sure everyone listening can identify with creepy. It is the worst thing to be called creepy. And the difference between being creepy and giving someone the attention they want is they're essentially their consent to get your attentions. And that is the essence of any great relationship. Hey, don't be following me.
Yeah, I mean, everybody doesn't like marketing campaigns towards them that are not personalized. That's one thing. So it's an important thing to try and personalize your customers' interaction. You will gain more from a return on investment related to that. But then, how do you do that, especially in an age where AI is going to be implemented and there's going to be hyper personalization? Now, the question, how do you do that ethically? And we propose a different business model to do that. And there are many mechanisms and issues related to this. You know, the regulatory side and what's happening with third-party cookies and cookie deprecations. But I'm sure we're going to get to that at some point.
Well, I mean, how did your vision for the product change as you started going about developing it?
Let's say there was transparency between us, and I told you that I'm going to use your data and I'm going to share it with another company that's going to sell it to a marketer. And at least you said yes to that, but it was presented in that level of transparency. And I also maybe rewarded you for that. And most importantly, timed, because once data is somewhere, they could be used and reused after that, and that's not what you want. So you want to be able to potentially control the time that I'm using your data with full transparency, right? If I can do that, I potentially can get a lot more data from you. Now, the question is, how can I enforce this? How can I create a technical mechanism that if I told you that I'm only going to use your data with this person and I'm only going to, certain activities with your data and it's actually going to expire after a week, how do I enforce that technically? And that's really where we started with the product, meaning the ability to control how data is going to be used remotely. And can that be done? And that was really the question that we were asking. And it was more around data authorization and the use of personal data downstream. We didn't change, but we enhanced that experience with also the ability to ask and digitize the preferences of the customers. And when I say digitize preferences, is not necessarily don't call me or don't email me. I'm talking about really down to the attribute level of what I'm using. I'm going to use your GPS location because I'm offering a new service that every time you pass next to a Starbucks, you'll get 20% off if you walk in. That's a very transparent way of why I'm going to use your data, but I'm already collecting your GPS location, by the way. I'm just confirming that this is your preference, and I'm going to reward you with that 20%. Right? And this would last maybe for 2 or 3 months or holidays or whatever it is, the transaction. And this creates trust over time because you're rewarded to it and you will get a message at the end of that period of time that says, hey, Daryl, remember that you gave us this permission. This preference could either be continued and here's another reward, or it could be don't do anything and the data will actually self-destruct or be deleted or archived at the brand side. That's a relationship that would lead to more and more preferences over a longer period of time and a relationship that's built on trust. And that's what we mean when we say trust.
Well, it also very neatly addresses the problem of data degradation, which most marketers are very familiar with. It's like, you want your data fresh. Because then it's relevant. The older it gets, the more questionable it gets. And by having a mechanism that essentially says, this data is getting old, we better ping this customer and get their consent once again that A, we can have your data, and B, that these attributes that we've assigned to you are still correct. That's a nice fringe benefit of
Well,
having
actually, that's a
that capability.
very good observation, Daryl, because it's not just about how fresh the data is; it's about being able to go back to people rather than having a finite preference selection at one time in the customer experience. So, as you're onboarding the customer and he's moving from unknown to known, and you're trying to get him to write his T's and C's, and then you bury certain preferences somewhere in the T's and C's, rather than saying, "Hey, we're gonna let you create a dynamic preference wallet for yourself. And you don't have to answer all of these questions now. Every time, we'd like to ask you for something. Would you like to get, this flavor of pet food or that flavor of pet food? Is that, would we pay you for the convenience of answering that? And the data will only last for the campaign's period of time, right? Then you can start creating personas that are not based on a Russian roulette, basically. Would he sign "Don't market to me anything" in the in today's preference centers, okay, which are very high level? Don't market, yes market, email communication, no communication, right? That's what's currently available. If you bother actually seeing the preference center, right? What we're talking about is much more deeper in terms of your behavior or what are you interested in and all that stuff. But you keep control of those preferences in your own wallet, each one given, by the brand to each one of its customers. And that's the way to personalize the customer experience, each one with his own preferences.
Well, that's first. It's giving a lot more control to consumers than they're used to, and certainly for someone like myself, that I prefer salmon cat food, but my cat definitely will not eat any fish flavored anything. It's chicken or nothing for her, and she's really making the decisions. So I think having that control in her hands is probably a better idea. But in terms of gathering all of those many facets of customer preferences, how do you contrast what one creation is providing versus, say, a CDP platform? And incidentally, we just had our very first Gartner report on CDP come out.
Yeah, yeah, I saw it. Congratulations to the top three at the quadrant. I believe it was Treasure Data and Salesforce and Tillion and those companies. Congratulations to them. Each one, does different things, and each CDP there's no one, the same CDP. But what you could contrast the functionality here is, number one, anything that's digitized in terms of the campaign towards the customer can be embedded anywhere in the customer journey. And there are three types of preferences that could be collected: either confirming an existing preference, like I spoke about the GPS location that we already collect about you, either confirming a product preference, I'm interested in this type of product or that type of product, or confirming or creating new preferences in the form of new questions in order to fill a certain gap that you have in your customer's 360 view. Those are the three different capabilities that the platform provides and can be embedded anywhere. Once that data is collected, it's in real time then fed into a CDP that then interacts with their next best action engine. And then you could immediately create a loop between what you've collected in terms of the customer's immediate preference. Let's say I'm checking out and I'm buying 2 pizzas in Domino's Pizza. And the engine figures out that I'm buying 2 pizzas every Friday and asks me a question: would you please tell me if you're gluten intolerant? And if you do, this purchase is free. And if you do that, you actually go like, click yes, okay, I am gluten intolerant. And that feeds into the CDP. The CDP then realizes that you have somebody that's gluten intolerant that potentially is buying pizza for his children. And now you can get another coupon immediately in the next best action to go end the same experience and give him something much more personal for a gluten-free product that Domino's Pizza provides. So that's how we enhance the CDP experience, by being able to bring in other types of real-time preferences into the CDP to be analyzed, appended, acted upon, and creates what I call a personalization loop.
So it's almost like you're creating a 1 question or 2 question survey to gather that data. You're not going out there and hitting
No,
your customers with 15, 20. Could you take the next 3 hours of your life to tell us more about how much you love us? Which is
yes.
why people are not responding to surveys anymore. It's just 1 question
So,
right now.
so So the point is, again, it's about personalization. When you open a new account at Netflix or at X or something like that, you're actually selecting certain preferences and genres for the algorithm to work. Okay, to be able to tell you what you're interested in, to recommend certain things for you. That's a personalization activity. The same thing needs to happen in multiple different locations. We'll call it trust building, experiences. And yes, if you are collecting new preferences in the form of a short survey, we don't recommend more than two questions. It's a matter of how do you interfere with the customer's experience, but you have to reward them with something that's relevant and proportional to what you're asking. And that's where you can use the tool to run different A B tests and figure out what is the equilibrium point that adds the right reward, the right location for that interference in your customer experience. But it has to be completely relevant. And what we didn't speak about is what we spoke about in the beginning, which is the trust factor, where you're adding transparency for exactly why you're asking that question. Okay. And then you're adding a period of time when that preference will expire. And at the end of that preference time, that will create, according to our existing experience, 50% more chances that the person that you would have clicked, I'm not interested in to continue in this path, and I don't want the reward, or I don't want this experience. 50% more will actually click through the experience and will withstand the period of time.
So you've got a great set of metrics that you're building on, how to not annoy your customers.
Well, not annoy the customers, but still work in a very tight privacy environment that is going to, and of course, the whole, blocking of the third party data that used to provide us with the ability to try and append and infer what really Daryl wants and what is he doing. Is he buying it for himself or for his wife? Is his children or not? There's many holes in the 360 understanding of what Daryl is, that less about what do you think about the product, but more about what Daryl really is from a 360 perspective. That is all done in the CDP. We're just another tool to provide that CDP with the ability to collect preferences in real time and enhance that 360 experience, and then reward for that with both transparency and an equivalent value exchange. So security needs to be there, transparency needs to be there, and the exchange of value. Those three things provide a build of trust and a different business model to be able to start getting you used to maybe interfering a tad bit in your customer experience, but you know that this experience did not collect anything in the back, no cookies. You're feeling a lot less creepy, and maybe would give up, depending again where the equilibrium of the reward and the exchange of the value and the period of time and all these different circumstances. It's a win-win situation for any brand that's thinking, how do I work in a cookieless environment?
And how do I ask relevant questions at the right time, but just one or two, kind of a friendly investigation
Yeah.
versus
And
just,
it can also be confirming existing preferences. So we just ask you, hey, can we use your GPS location? We're already collecting that, right? Or we can ask you, which product are you interested in, a mortgage or a credit card right now? You don't need to answer more than that. And then you don't need to answer big preferences that are static. And that creates progressive, persona building according to their preferences. So you don't go all out in the beginning and then get 40%. They go like, not interested to hear from you again.
well, I know that you've had an opportunity to engage with some major brands already that have one creation up and running and providing value to them. What's been your favorite business case to date of what clients are using it for?
I could tell you what is a favorite use case of mine. It's still in pilot state, so it's not, then widely used, but it's my favorite one. But although, we started in the financial services side, so we had a lot of experience in places where banks created partnerships with other brands, either grocers or airlines or those type of partnerships, and created different types of cards where we provided a lot of help in moving the unknown and the personalization that you have in one of the retailers' data, and to be added on top of it the financial data, which created a much better service for the higher echelon executive member reward systems for existing, card and grocery type of partnerships. However, I'm always a dreamer, and therefore that's why I want to talk about this really exciting use case. And it connects, and what is exciting about it is that it connects multiple different aspects of what preferences or what Daryl's persona would look like into a service. So let's assume that Zohar was 10 pounds overweight, and I wanted to lose some pounds, let's say 10 pounds. And I can actually connect my Apple Health or whatever is the other device that's collecting health information about me, and I can connect that to one of the appliances in the house, which will then generate chat GPT type of personalized menus that, if I do follow, would be presented, let's say, on the fridge or on the microwave or whatever, the oven or whatever. There's a screen today, right? And if I follow these, I will be able to lose this 10 pounds in the next, let's say, 8 weeks or something like that. Imagine now one creation standing in the middle and allowing for the customer to create a preferences kind of profile, which will allow for other types of ecosystem members to come in, such as the grocer. And if you then give consent and preferences around, the menus that were created, you can create very personalized type of services that will, let's say, look like a HelloFresh, but much more personalized, because it has your health information and it's considering the fact that you're trying to lose 10 pounds. And all of that based on an ecosystem that could include another bank or a card that's preferred in that ecosystem, and other types of members that connect basically health information. It could be insurance as well and other type of companies, right? But to collect health information, which is kind of precious for the customer, but gives you a very good utility and combines a lot of these, both AI and privacy concerns around the data that you're providing. And that's really one of the ultimate type of use cases that I'm really excited to be able to execute with a partner.
Let's talk a little bit about, we have talked about you integrating with CDP.
Mm.
CDPs being a great repository for this first party data. What sort of integrations do you have live at the current time?
Yeah, so we're integrated into Klaviyo and into Segment. And what we've done is we've actually created a native type of API hook that can connect to any downstream CDP. And that means that literally, with not a lot of knowledge, even marketers, yes, can actually go through a simple wizard on the platform that can connect the flow of the preferences and the real time information that we're collecting. This is not like end of the week. Here's a Word document with the results of the preferences and the answers and all those permissions. It flows immediately downstream, and through this hook that we've created, you can connect it to any downstream CDP, which will take that data in. And then there's an additional integration of what's been done with that data, but that's done inside the CDP, meaning it goes to the next engine or the next best action type of engine in order to automate, that process as well.
Well, so obviously you're giving those marketers a low code front end to determine where that data goes, but that I believe
we also allow them to build campaigns through that GUI. We also allow them to, and you called it correctly, a no code interface. You also have an ability to create multiple different campaigns, and then to literally click a button and copy the code onto any property, meaning your website, your mobile application, your email as a link inside the email, your text if you'd like to have a text sending system. All of that is basically a marketer can finish a campaign, which will say, as I told you, I'm going to use this. I need your preference or I need your confirmation that this is what you're interested in. And for this amount of time, for this amount of reward. It creates a code. It gets you go to your website or to any of those marketing automation side of those platforms or any marketing automation platforms, and you can integrate that code, which will appear as an embedded part of your website, your mobile application automatically, literally with a few clicks of a button.
Previously, the solutions that you developed for the financial services industry are different from One Creation in a fundamental way, in that One Creation is a cloud native, API led solution with microservice architecture. And I'd like you, just from your experience, to just describe how that has made One Creation functionality easier to deploy and a faster processing engine than what you've worked with prior.
Well, it's fun, you know, given how many times I tried this in the past and how many times we built products together with other engineers. It's much more intuitive and easier and faster to build cloud native architecture. What we've done is we've provided two types of access controls to our API, either through a SaaS service where you're connecting, the API, and we're a back end cloud that collects those preferences and sends it to your cloud. That's the easiest, cheapest, fastest way to integrate our solution into your existing workflow. It's really, really fast, really easy to integrate. We also considered, well, because we started in the financial services side, to provide an installed version where you install this on your cloud as well. But we are supporting something called Kubernetes, which is a virtualization type of containerized type of deployment, and that's already available for both AWS and Azure. And you can go to the AWS marketplace and literally download the app to your cloud and see what's the next steps in terms of integrating it downstream and upstream to your CDP and to your marketing automation platform.
Let's switch gears here, because I'm talking with you, and you're a veteran founder. Is this your third or fourth startup?
This is my fifth, actually, if you count. And when I say not all of them, I was the actual founder. I was a co-founder in a couple. But yeah, I have a lot of scars on back, from this type of an experience. But it's an extremely exhilarating one.
Yeah, we've okay. So we've established that you're a masochist, and you clearly enjoy self-flagellation. But what has been your biggest challenge as a founder this time around?
That's a great question. My biggest challenge is education. And when I say education, meaning being able to get really, really quickly, in retrospect now, I look at this and then to get as quickly as I can to the message that started this podcast. What does One Creation do, and how does it differ than any type of other solution? To get to that message with a very complex technical solution that's very advanced and uses, tomorrow's technology and not today's technology. A founder that's technical or that has some technical background might consider expressing or amplifying the technical aspects of the solution rather than the functional or meaningful or what solution are you solving and how differently you're doing it. And that's really the biggest challenge that I think I went through in the beginning of the company's history.
Well, let's talk about your first startup.
It was a company called ViewTrade. It was a company I came to the United States a little later than most people would come in their lives. I came in a diplomatic mission, and I then stayed here and went to school, and then started working in a bank, basically in a trading capacity, and started that company by asking a couple of my colleagues and boss to leave the bank and to start the company. So that really how I had that already from the first job, and that was my first experience, and it was in the commodity space and commodities and equities digitization space. So uh,
You headhunted people. Yeah, from the heart. Well done.
as
Well
a young
done.
as a young person, to look at that, the difference between me, of course, and many other people my age at that time, and maybe I was 27, I think, at the time, was that I had a military background, so I definitely think that veterans, get to become more mature than the average person because of what they see and what they do, and take things in a much more mature way, and very pragmatic way. Look, if you want to start a company, you better have a couple of people that will help you out and that believe in your vision. And if it had to be had hunted from within the company, the financial company that we were working in, then that's how it happened. And two poor souls came with me, and they were pretty senior, I believe, at that organization. So
You've mentioned that Andy Brown has been a mentor.
well, the prestigious Andy Brown.
The prestigious Andy Brown. I didn't know he had that moniker, but yeah, I like it.
I like it. He's British, so you have to give them
Ah,
that, right? So you have to get him some sort. I'm sure there's some, and I
the
think there is some sort
prestigious
of a
Andy Brown.
lineage somewhere there. But Andy is a wonderful man, and a very very smart man. And I learned very early in my life that if you do find somebody that's a kinder spirit and that appreciates maybe who you are and finds you almost like as a diamond in a rough, then you should cherish that, and you should listen and use that person. And I think everyone in their careers need to find somebody, and maybe in their lives find a mentor. It's something I would recommend to everyone. And good mentors are there for you all the time, and they give it to you straight. Andy is very knowledgeable. He used to be the CTO of Merrill Lynch and a couple of other very famous organizations. He saw me in one of the interviews that I interviewed for a position with him, and I think the answer was, "You need to go and start a company and not go into the bank." And that was great advice. And that was, I believe, either my first or second company.
So he saw in you the entrepreneurial muscle, and he said, "Look, you're not somebody who's going to fit in to a role. You have to create it. You have to go out there and make something new to realize
I'd
your
like to think that
potential."
I can fit into roles. I just think that my style is that I maybe would take it in a different and unorthodox way, but I'm open to and listening, and I'm trying to maybe think about how this would look in 20 or 30 years, not just in the next 5 years. And sometimes that's good, and sometimes that's bad, because you might be ahead of yourself. But that's my style, I guess.
So you've had to go out and raise funds, as most startups do. What are your thoughts or lessons that you've learned thus far on the dog and pony show circuit?
Wow. It's been very challenging in the last 4 years, I would say, maybe 3 years. Okay. Challenging, and I see it still being challenging in 2024, for early stage companies to gain, enough money to really exercise, and to have enough stamina with the first round to last for enough time to exercise what they wanted to do, technically, and also from a go to market perspective. So it's been challenging to get large sums of money, although I've seen successful companies do that. I would say the lessons that I learned is that don't ask for money too early. Lesson number two is do a lot of research on which VCs or which early angels or whatever your stage you are actually experts in your field, and show that in their portfolio and that they're in their activity. There's a lot of people out there that just would be glad to talk to you so they could learn something new about the market, but not really have any intent to invest in your area of expertise. And I would recommend that you do your research and have a simple pitch towards those people in terms of exactly what your problem you're solving and how you're going to go to market with it.
So, in terms of your next round, your next raise, what kind of investor do you think would make the best partner for you?
An investor that believes in the vision, that the business model of how today's personalization effort works, today's digital marketing infrastructure works, is not tomorrow's, for all the reasons that we've spoken about in this podcast. And that the future is near. Meaning, if you looked at currently a McKinsey report that just came out that talked about the problem with the deprecation of cookies, and basically the main answer, or the main bullet out of it that I took out, is that companies that will continue relying on third party data in order to try to personalize their customers' experience will pay approximately 20% more in cost in order to reach those same services, unless they changed their business model to the one that we've described today. That's the kind of investor that I would want to partner with. Now, when is it going to happen? Look, the product is now tested and used. It needs to be scaled to other areas that we're working on right now. So it's really a scaling exercise, and that's the type of partners, if they understand what's involved in that and are willing to be part of that. Those are the people that we'd love to have a chat with.
Sounds like someone that who really appreciates the complexity of the martech landscape when it comes to personalization, and realizes that the existing set of solutions that are out there are not providing the data that the customers need, and are going to be out of compliance. It's another issue that's rapidly coming to the fore in places like California and New York that are passing GDPR type legislation. Well,
Exactly.
now, in terms of just what it's like to be with Zohar day to day, I mean, this has been perfectly pleasant, at least from my end. You may be miserable, but that's really not the
No,
point. How would you describe the culture that you've created there at One Creation?
in one word, empowerment.
That's a
That's
good word.
the When you're a small team, you need to know that everyone is doing everything, not just what they were supposed to do on a daily basis, but everything, in order to make sure that the team succeeds and that the product that they deliver is great, and that you know they're safe together. That needs open communication. But know that if you have something to do and it's your responsibility, that you're going to do it, and that you're empowered to think differently, and that you're empowered to bring it up, and bring it up whenever you want, as fast as you can, not waiting for anything. It doesn't have to be done in a meeting or anything like that, but bring it up and have new ideas all the time, and you're empowered to do those, and then to execute it that way. We discuss it, of course, but if you met my co-founder Young, this is our second company together. She's a tough lady, and she can do whatever she wants, and I've empowered her to. She's the head of product. That where the product goes, she understands the long-term vision, but she knows which priority comes first. And I try not to argue with that, although I do argue, but not, that's her decision, right? So it's all about empowerment.
Well, I believe that there's quite a few people that you've worked with previously that have joined you yet again for what I assume, what quite clearly is not another round of abuse, but a round of empowerment. So kudos to you.
Thank
I
you.
love that. I love that. I am a headhunter, and I am sensitive that you may, in fact, have a role right now that you need to hire someone for. And if you'd like, by all means, share it with the network. Is there anyone you need to hire right now?
Well, you mentioned regulations passing in California, but massive, more stricter regulations are passing in Europe and in the UK. And we would love to get help from, a young, excited individual that wants to basically take advantage of these regulations that are moving all towards a model that will require our technology, and try to get, and work on our sales and development and business development team to cover those territories. That's something that I'm interested in potentially looking at someone that could help us and would have the right either attitude, which is the most important thing that I hire for. Skills I can teach you, but attitude is really important, that you're a go-getter and that you know that this is the, entry floor to this ride. And if you'd like to join us, we would, really, really like to look at your resume.
Outstanding. Any final thoughts, Zohar?
Well, now listen, I'm going through a process right now that's called trying to educate the brands and the audience about what's the value of one creation and what problem it's solving. And I hope this was, a good chapter in that. And I really wanted to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you and to your audience.
Zohar, it's been my pleasure. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Martalks. Please leave a review and a rating on your platform of choice. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all major podcast platforms. To find out more about how the Rosenstein Group can help you find the right leaders for your client development teams in martech and e-commerce, please visit our website, rosensteingroup.com.